So this is a common topic that pops up often. Treats and people, and when I mean people, I mean like strangers or unfamiliar people to your dog, or people that aren't really a part of your dog's day-to-day life. Whether you're raising a dog, or you adopted a dog, or you've had a dog for a couple years, it can have negative effects. It can certainly play some positives, but the risks of the negatives can outweigh that potential for the positive effects, and especially if you're dealing with a nervous dog. Now, the idea behind giving a piece of food to a friend to give to the dog helps build that relationship, and that can be true if the dog is socially curious. But if they're not, you can actually have a damaging effect. Now, the dogs that are already socially curious and like to develop relationships, you don't really even need to incorporate that food. They already find satisfaction out of an interaction with that person, so you don't need to add anything to it. On the flip side of that, if you're slowly increasing the value of your guests over the value of yourself, you can start losing a little bit of control over time, where the dog thinks it's more rewarding to just pay attention to this person and not listen to the things that you want them to be doing, like don't jump, come over here, stop barking, things like that. And you can kind of develop a little bit of a pushy dog for interactions with your guests or strangers on walks and things like that. We run into that quite often. Now, as far as like the not so social dogs or the hesitant dogs, food can help in the process once they're a little bit more comfortable, but it can also be a little bit detrimental if the dog is watching this whole scenario play out, where they watch you take food out of your pocket or out of a pouch, give it to a stranger, and then that stranger is potentially offering it to them. It doesn't always be viewed as this trusting thing. It can actually make your dog lose a little bit of trust in you, because you're encouraging a stranger to them to interact with them, and they don't want it. And the dogs that back away and shy away, and we kind of move towards them more and more to try and encourage them to take the food, that can make things worse. And I've seen that damage people's relationships to the point where the dog starts like becoming reactive rather than being accepting of those situations, and you want to avoid that. Now, to properly use food in these encounters, it's more of an indirect way, and you can like leave food on a counter or something for someone, and this is stuff that you'll do at your house, or you're setting up a meet and greet with either a new friend or people that need to meet the dog because they're a part of your life, a new significant other, something like that, family members. Now, you set it up to where like, all right, you put food over here, and it's just there, and the person can go up and grab it at their own time, their own pace, and walk up and drop food for the dog on the ground, not make this whole scenario of, here you go, now hand it to him. It's more, it's food, this person comes across it, comes up, and doesn't directly offer to the dog, but just kind of drops it on the ground like low expectation food. And if the dog, the hesitant dog or generally nervous dog, is interested, then they might start seeking food from that person, and that interaction grows a little bit more organically. It's not truly organic because we still manipulated it, but it can grow a little bit more organically and make that dog feel a little bit less threatened or held to a certain level of expectation to be involved in an interaction, and instead they voluntarily come into it rather than you just being like, hey, you're in it, here you go, do you want this? You want this food? And you're making eye contact and saying their name and speaking in weird voices, hey buddy, right? Like, not every dog likes that, and the dogs that are hesitant and nervous can sometimes retreat more from that. It really depends on where they fall on the social scale. So just some things to be cautious about with food and strangers or friends or anything like that. Anyone that's a little bit unfamiliar to your dog, pay attention to what's going on. If your dog's already social, you likely don't need the food. If they're a little bit antisocial, a little bit hesitant, food can help in the right way, but if you're if you're pushing the food on them and expecting them to be accepting of it, you can have a damaging effect.